Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to everybody, and thank you for joining us today at the virtual launch of the theme study for the 77th session of the Commission. The publication is entitled Beyond the Pandemic, Building Back Better from Crises in Asia and the Pacific. My name is Mitch Shea. I am Chief of the Communications and Knowledge Management section here at ESCAP. And I will be moderating this launch. And again, we are very pleased to have everybody joining us from across the region this morning. We will start our launch with a presentation by the Executive Secretary of ESCAP on the regional overview of the socioeconomic impacts of the pandemic and the recommendations made by the Secretariat. Time permitting, we will follow that presentation with some questions and answer period. After that, we will proceed to our sub-regional breakout groups where participants will hear more detailed presentations on each sub-region, and there will be a subsequent discussion as well. We have four groups this morning, one from North and Central Asia, one from Northeast Asia, a third from Southeast Asia, and the last from South and Southwest Asia. Unfortunately, our Pacific colleagues are not able to join us this morning, and we will schedule a separate event for the Pacific shortly. If you have any questions for the breakout groups, please feel free to ask them in the chat box where they will be collected, and then they could be taken up during the sub-regional breakout groups. So with that bit of introduction and without any further delay, it's my pleasure now to give the floor to Ms. Armida Saucia Alice-Jabana, the Undersecretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of ESCAP, to provide her welcome remarks as well as a presentation on the findings of the theme study for this year's 77th session of the Commission. Madam Executive Secretary, the floor is yours. Madam, you're muted. Madam, can we unmute your?
Sorry. Yeah, again, dear colleagues, very good morning. Good afternoon from Bangkok. It is my immense pleasure to launch the Commission Session 77th session theme study titled Beyond the Pandemic, Building Back Better from Crisis in Asia and the Pacific. Let me start by reminding all of us that there are two aspects from this multidimensional crisis. Now, next slide, please. First is the state of preparedness pre-COVID situation, which we can see from the dashboard in front of us, in which, if I may give a quick summary from this dashboard, is that the certain weaknesses in terms of state of preparedness, countries in our region, which is basically on the health or weak healthcare provision or poor quality of healthcare provision. If you see from the dashboard, the color-coded box shows the color is not green. The green one is meaning that the particular variable is in good shape. But we also see that opportunities are there for scaling up digitalization. Because in terms of the digital connectivity indicators, many countries in our region, several, for example, countries in Southeast Asia, for example, in East Asia for sure, and many more countries are accelerating this digital connectivity. Although the digital connectivity gap is still immense, but a progress is there. So therefore, opportunity for scaling up further digitalization is there. And again, with this quick overall overview, So therefore, one of the priority areas is how to close the gap in the weakness in terms of the preparedness, yeah, in the healthcare profession, in several basic services profession, basic infrastructure, and several other indicators. Second aspect of this multi-dimensional crisis, next slide please, is on the impact. We know very much, yeah, the crisis has caused significant negative impact, socio-economic impact, not only on health, but on poverty, on, again, on the disruption of education, the impact of the vulnerable group, including informal sector worker, the migrants, MSMEs, and also the loss of employment opportunities because of the border closure, because of the social distancing measure, because of the direct health related impact. So therefore, next slide, please. Theme study of our upcoming commission session is concentrated in the 4 critical interconnected priority areas, namely how to scale up social protection, how to invest, yeah, in a sustained recovery, which use SDG as the overarching compass. Third, how to keep goods or trade and information flowing, again, because of this risk of border closure. Fourth is how to mend the broken relationship with nature, or in other words, how to preserve the ecosystem. Next slide, please. And again, yeah, we understand from the crisis, yeah, that no one is spared, no country is spared, yeah, but nobody can overcome or find solution by him or herself. Likewise, no one country can solve, yeah, overcome this multidimensional crisis by themselves. So therefore, not only national action that is of utmost importance, but cross-country collaboration, how we can join forces, how we can enhance regional cooperation to recover better, to mitigate the socio-economic of the crisis, that's for sure, but also how to chart our way forward to recover better. Recover better meaning what? Recover better meaning we recover towards a situation that is better than the pre-COVID, in which we understand, yeah, and we see that the issue of inequality, the issue of vulnerability, the issue of inclusiveness, the issue of unsustainability of our development paradigm, of our economic growth, yeah, have impacted us all. Yeah, so how to recover better in the direction of the recovery, and therefore this theme study proposes 5-point action plan for the COVID-19 recovery. Yeah, that I will share a bit later. And then I come to the first issue, yeah, which I alluded earlier. The next slide, please. Which is one of the priority areas, how to scale up or broaden social protection, with the background information that many countries in the region have does not have yet, yeah, adequate social protection in place. Yeah, and we see the pandemic stress out gaps in social protection across countries in the region. Yeah, and these gaps exacerbate the impact on the negative impact of the crisis on the vulnerable groups, informal sectors, worker, the migrant worker, the disability, and all the vulnerable groups. Yeah, and for precisely that reason, these vulnerable groups were or have not been adequately covered by any social protection, including healthcare coverage. Yeah. So therefore, one of the priority policy action is how to scale up social protection. Again, yeah, if we see the immediate policy response from the stimulus packages from many governments, many countries in our region, they started yet to scale up the social protection. Against social protection, there are this contributory scheme and the non-contributory scheme, including the non-contributory scheme, yeah, through the so-called social assistance. And then how we can facilitate further the countries to structure, yeah, all this social protection means into a more social protection coverage, yeah, for their respective countries. Next slide, please. And with this priority areas in mind with regard to social protection, ESCAP, with the endorsement through the endorsement of member states, last year launched the action plan to strengthen regional cooperation on social protection in Asia and the Pacific. Yeah, countries discuss not only the social protection inequalities across countries, but how to scale up the coverage of social protection by learning, including by learning from each other, by learning from the best practice, because some countries are way ahead than the rest. So we can learn from among the peers. Yeah. So therefore, with this much scale up effort in terms of social protection, we hope that countries can recover better together, this inclusiveness also, yeah, being taken into account. The second element is the priority to invest in a sustained recovery. The next slide, please. In which first is, again, the priority areas, yeah, to recover better. In which direction? The direction of which, of course, we use SDG as our compass. Yeah, SDG is as our guidance or our direction to recover better. But again, then we need the financing. Yeah, the fiscal stimulus, the fiscal space to go into this direction. Yeah. Therefore, the financial support and economic stimulus that is essential for sustained recovery and the SDGs will need to be financed. Yeah. Some countries have the added challenge of this fiscal deficit. Yeah, the already quite high debt to GDP ratio, in which is becoming exacerbated because of the crisis. So therefore, not only the direction of the fiscal stimulus and recovery packages, but second one, also the equally important is how to finance, yeah, how to find the financing for the fiscal space needed. Next slide, please. Again, ESCAP projected or did this calculation that about $1.5 trillion will be necessary to achieve SDGs, yeah, to achieve the SDGs to bring the positive economic outcomes. Yeah. So this is the scale of the financing needed. Yeah. Of course, this is total numbers, yeah, for all countries in the region. Several countries would need, proportionately more than the others, and hence also the financing needs needed is more. So therefore, the other element, yeah, in how to invest in a sustained recovery is that we also need, yeah, to develop, yeah, or scale up the multiple sources of financing, including the public spending and tax reform initiative, including how to remove the unnecessary subsidies, including how to implement. This is a little getting more specific. For example, this initiative that is long overdue to implement one or two, yeah, quite a specific fiscal fiscal measures such as the implementation of carbon tax whenever it is appropriate, of course. Yeah. The next one, the next priority, the next slide is how to keep trade or goods and information flowing. Again, we understand that COVID-19 pandemic has increased the complexity of international trade and transport links, especially because of the borders closure, as well as in terms of gaps in digitalization. I alluded earlier at the start of the presentation that in our region, but certain countries in our region, they have made a significant progress in closing their digital divide, accelerate in the digitalization in terms of hard infrastructure, including the soft infrastructure. But situation is not the same for all countries. Several countries still face immense digital divide. So therefore, both priorities on how to keep goods, trade, and as well as transport, connectivity open, and also how to scale up this digitalization. And some of the solution is actually comes from digitalization, including in the trade, including in the connectivity that I will explain a bit later. Next slide, please. Yes, the supply chain. Supply chain. If you understand, if you understand our region, Asia Pacific, one of the driver of Asia Pacific growth is due to this trade, including the regional or the global supply chain. Several countries are center of the supply chain, and once borders close or hinder, the flow of goods are being hindered, then we have challenges and difficulties, in maintaining and maintaining this supply chain open. So, or in other words, supply chains were compromised by restriction in regional transport resilience, such as aviation, air transport, and also its impact on small to medium transport operators, land-based transport, and so on. So therefore, one of the policy recommendation of this study is how to strengthen digitalization and global value chain. At the same time, also, build resilience in the supply chain, in the trade, exchange, build resilience in the connectivity through one means is through the digitalization. One example is our framework agreement on cross-border paperless trade, in which how countries can scale up the trade, but without any more this hard copy or paper based documents. All the trade will be done through this trade. So therefore, again, with regard to this, one priority areas is how to build this confidence or confidence building measure for countries to open borders in stages, to include the appropriate health measures, health protocols, for example, in the custom procedures, quarantine procedures, etc. And all these measures, in some way or another needs to be properly standardized and agreed by countries or parties concerned. Next slide, please, is on protecting the environment for ecosystem. COVID-19, as we understand, is zoonotic. an infectious disease type that increases as humans, domestic animals, and wild animals interacted, more often or get closer. So therefore, how to mitigate, this risk further, to avoid, the kind of crisis or pandemics in the future. So therefore, several priority areas are being suggested or recommended, including the escalation of, or including, I think the next slide, please. Including how to ensure the planetary health. So therefore, countries have to tackle the issues of biodiversity, as well as pollution, climate change, and mainstream that into their legislation. Again, because many of the issues are transborder in nature, no countries can solve this situation by themselves. Countries need collaborate together. So countries in our region in Asia Pacific needs to implement, again, in a nutshell, not only the ecosystem protection, but from the recovery, the green recovery packages, how to better address the environment, how to mitigate the climate change, climate change risks, and challenges, as well as how to tackle the environmental impact of this human health or risk, of the health, including this pandemic. So therefore, I come to the last slide of my presentation, which is a 5-point policy agenda. Again, the first one is, again, we understand, nobody can solve this crisis by themselves, including countries. So therefore, we need to enhance and scale up regional cooperation in the key priority areas, namely to scale up social protection and build universal social protection along the life course. Second, to promote trade facilitation, including trade digitalization, harmonization, and fully embed social and environmental concerns into the global supply chain and connectivity. Third is countries need to ensure sufficient fiscal space to ensure or to invest in the sustained economic recovery guided by SDGs. Fourth is countries needs to safeguard environmental health by protecting and preserving the ecosystem. So with that, in a nutshell, I already quickly share the important key highlights of our theme study for the upcoming Commission session, which is on building back better, or beyond the pandemic, building back better post the COVID-19 crisis. With that, I would like to hand over back to the moderator, Mitch. Over to you, Mitch.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary. Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary, for your remarks and that summary of the theme study. We do invite you all to take a look at the theme study itself in full. It's available on the ESCAP website. If you follow the tabs for the Commission, you'll be able to find the theme study there. We do have a little bit of time for questions and answers. We've received several during your presentation in the chat box, and we also received many ahead of time. We won't be able to get to all of them. We do invite all the participants to go ahead and pose those questions into the sub-regional discussion groups and the breakout groups following this presentation. But if I may, Madam Executive Secretary, just take a moment to ask you just one question for the benefit of the entire audience here. The question is, we've seen that the COVID pandemic has, of course, highlighted and even exacerbated many of the inequalities inside countries, but also between countries. And the question is, what lessons can or have maybe international organizations such as ESCAP learned from the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of ensuring that development aid and development finance are more resilient and far-reaching? What may be some of the previous errors that international organizations may have made that we now see in finance development and could be rectified in this time? What are some of the lessons learned, basically, that we've had from past crises, and how can we support our countries and our member states better this time around? Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary. The floor is yours. You can unmute yourself, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, yeah, for the question. Again, if the question is posed to international agency or international organization, several of us, yeah, have different priority areas of work or so-called mandates, yeah. Several colleagues are directly work in the field, for example, yeah, directly provided assistance to the targeted groups, yeah, that's one. But other organizations, such as us, ESCAP, we do not directly work on the field, yeah, directly assisting the vulnerable group as such, yeah. But we work more on the policy advice, advocacy advice front. So therefore, yeah, what we learned from the pandemic, yeah, because this inequality, this vulnerability, yeah, there are groups out there, the informal sector worker, the poor, the near poor, yeah, the migrant workers, and so on. So the priority is, yeah, for such international organization to facilitate the countries concerned in building the system, yeah, a good system. We talk one priority areas is the social protection system, right? So how for the countries, the government to be facilitated, to be supported, yeah. So therefore, governments is able to develop such an inclusive, scale up a social protection system. So I think that's the priority should lie there. And also remember, yeah, it's not if you talk about building a system, yeah, then you need also to think about how to finance, yeah, the system in a sustainable way. That's another challenge, yeah. You can build any system, but it may not be sustainable. So a good system, including social protection system, is how to build the system to be inclusive, meaning the coverage, yeah, you cover the population, including the vulnerable group, but at the same time, the system is also sustainable, including financially sustainable, yeah. So I think that's the priority. Yeah, one example, yeah, of a good priority that we should put, yeah, in our work. Over.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary. Thank you. We've come to the end of our time for this introductory segment. We do invite you now to join us in the breakout groups organized by each of the different sub-regional offices of ESCAP. You should see at the bottom toolbar on your screen a button for breakout rooms. I invite you to click on that, and you'll see a list of the 4 sub-regional offices in which you can join, and go ahead and make your selection. and then everybody will move into those rooms, and then
एक मिनट
I hand over now then to my colleagues. Yes, yes, okay. So you should see now a list of all the breakout rooms in which you can select. And then we conclude this segment of our launch of the theme study. And I then hand over to my colleagues in the sub-regional offices for them to conduct their development seminars from here on forward.